Okie dokie, something is happening here in America that nobody wants to say out loud. And for the first time in half a century, the flow of people, it's flipped. More Americans are walking out of the door than they're walking in. And the 10 states that we're covering today aren't just losing residents, they're losing the plot entirely. We're talking places where the math on keeping the lights on, the schools open and the roads drivable is starting to crack. The math just ain't mathing. Not in 20 years. Right now, some of these are going to genuinely surprise you. And one of them might even be where you're sitting right now. So let's go to number 1. California. Of course it is. California is the most beautiful broke friend you've ever had. Gorgeous, talented, great weather, completely unaffordable to actually spend time with though. Last year, more people left California for other states than anywhere else in America. Not dozens, not hundreds, we're talking up in the hundreds of thousands of people loading everything up into their trucks and pointing them east. U-Haul's profits are doing great. By the way, someone's winning here though, right? And these aren't people who got evicted or run out of luck, like teachers or engineers, small business owners, people with solid careers who run the numbers one Tuesday night and went, yeah, this just doesn't work for me. Here's the part the headline's blurry though. California's total population looks stable because immigration is replacing the people leaving. So officially, everything's fine. But in reality, it's a revolving door just spinning so fast that nobody's tracking who's coming and who's going. The housing math alone explains everything. When the median house price clears $800,000, a huge slice of the working population isn't buying. They're leaving. And once people leave California, they're almost never coming back. Because they discover something dangerous. Guess what that is? It turns out the rest of America have also got roofs too. Now let's look at number 2. New York. New York City. It's got a brand problem. And the brand is, why are you still here? The city that never sleeps is apparently also the city that never stops billing you also. State income taxes, city income tax layered on top as well. A cost of living that treats your paycheck like a suggestion. And a rental market that will charge you $4,000 a month for an apartment where the cozy layout means you can touch both walls from the bed with the one hand spread out like this. New York State lost over 100,000 residents net in a single year. And here's how you know they're not coming back. The moving trucks only run in one direction. Remote work did something nobody saw coming. The second people could keep their Manhattan salary without needing to be in Manhattan, they opened a spreadsheet, looked at rent prices in Raleigh. Is that how I'm pronouncing that right? As you can tell, I'm foreign. Raleigh? I think that's how it's pronounced. And started packing up the same afternoon. Raleigh got a flood of very well paid, very well relieved new neighbours practically overnight. But the deeper problem is structural. New Yorkers' whole economy runs on density. Millions of people together spending money constantly. That's the engine. You pull enough people out and the engine starts knocking. Those subways need riders, right? Restaurants, they need the tables to be full. Services need taxpayers. Thin it out enough and the math that runs one of the greatest cities in the world just stops working. Fewer people, harder budget choices, slower services, which makes more people leave. And that's not a rough pitch. That's a spiral. Now let's look at number 3, Illinois. Illinois has been hemorrhaging residents for nearly a decade. But here's the thing. Blame Chicago. Specifically, blame Chicago's pension situation, which is the financial environment of a guy who's been kicking a can down the road so long that he's forgotten what the road actually looks like. The city owes hundreds of billions to retired workers. Money it does not have. Money it has never had. So the solution apparently is to keep raising the property taxes until the math either fixes itself or everyone just leaves. And here's a spoiler. Everyone is leaving. Property taxes in some Chicago neighborhoods have gotten so extreme that landlords are voluntarily walking away from buildings that they actually own themselves, because the annual tax bill costs more than a year's worth of rent coming in. Go back and listen to that again. Owning the building costs more than owning the building. So they walk. Buildings go empty. Empty buildings get ugly, then they get dangerous, then the neighbourhood starts collapsing all around them. And then officials hold press conferences about why people keep on leaving, and they almost blame you for this. It's never their fault. Sir, you did this with a spreadsheet and a tax bill. Now let's look at number 4, New Jersey. New Jersey would like you to know that has the highest property taxes in the entire country. Congratulations. Not top 5, not a strong contender. They're number 1. Undisputed. Undefeated. The heavyweight champions of taking your money for the privilege of owning just dirt. The annual property tax bill tops $9,000. Some counties, you're looking at 15 to 20 grand per year just in property taxes on a house you already bought and paid for. And here's where it becomes almost poetic in a painful kind of way. A massive portion of New Jersey's residents commute into New York City for work. So you're paying New Jersey's record-setting property taxes to sleep there. Then spending your day getting hit with New York City prices. 2 states, both expensive, with zero mercy for you, simultaneously, every single weekday. And if you designed a financial situation specifically to make people miserable, you would design New Jersey's commuter experience. The roads are also a disaster because, well, of course they are. They're funding the most expensive local government in national. They're funding the most expensive local government in the nation, and the highway looks like it survived something it probably shouldn't have. People are tired, and the numbers never add up, and the potholes have officially become structural. Now let's look at Massachusetts, number 5. One of the most educated, the most innovative, the most medically advanced places in the entire world. It also successfully exported all of the talent directly to North Carolina and Texas, just like clockwork. Every year, Boston has priced out the people keeping it alive. A registered nurse pulling in 75 grand a year, which is a real salary for real skilled work, cannot afford comfortably a 1-bedroom apartment near the hospital where she works. The person stabilizing you at 2 a.m. cannot afford to live a reasonable distance from where she actually works. That is not a quirky cost of living footnote. That is a city consuming itself from the inside. Massachusetts builds world-class workers through world-class institutions and then immediately ships them somewhere that they can't afford a car payment and groceries at the same time. Charlotte is grateful though. Raleigh sends its thanks. Austin is thriving. Has Massachusetts to thank for a solid chunk of its talent also. Number 6, Hawaii. Hawaii's paradise, isn't it? Genuinely and objectively. The sunset looks like someone turned the saturation up too high and just forgot to fix it. People are leaving anyway, in record numbers. And here's what separates Hawaii from every other state on this list. Leaving isn't a casual decision. There's no let me just drive somewhere cheaper this weekend and see how that feels. You are buying a plane ticket, coordinating a shipping container, and you're relocating your entire life across country, thousands of miles of open ocean. And the commitment level is enormous. They're still doing it. Everything shipped to Hawaii costs so much more. And that even cost is so high in groceries and furniture and building materials. It's not just land and property. The island premium is real and it is relentless. A gallon of milk runs nearly double what you can pay on the mainland. Wages don't bridge that gap either. They don't even come close. Meanwhile, outside investors have been quietly converting entire working class neighbourhoods into short-term rental portfolios. The people who grew up there, the teachers, the firefighters, the folks who built those communities, they're relocating to places like Las Vegas and Phoenix, places that are fine. They're not looking like paradise though, just places where a normal salary buys just a normal life. And here's where things get economically ironic. When those workers leave, the hotels and restaurants that fund Hawaii's entire economy can't find staff. The tourists, they experience degrades. The things keeping the island financially alive, they start wobbling because the people who run it couldn't afford to stay. Paradise, priced out of paradise is what they say, priced out of its own population, and is now surprised it can't find a line cook. Let's look at Alaska, number 7. Alaska pays you to live there. Not metaphorically, of course, not in vibes. An actual check every year for cash, existing within state borders. People are still leaving though. When the bribe isn't working, something has gone seriously wrong, right? Alaska runs on oil money. When the oil price drops, the whole state budget flinches, and they've been drawing down their reserves for years just to keep basic services running. The infrastructure situation, what it is, roads that shut for entire seasons, communities only reachable by plane or a small boat. When your population shrinks, maintaining all that gets divided among fewer people. Eventually, the division stops working. Young people actually want jobs, options, they want warmth, and things to do on a Saturday that don't involve surviving. Alaska is losing them, and almost nobody is moving there to take the place of the people that are going. The annual check is nice though, genuinely. Points for effort. Now let's look at number 8, and I always say this name as if I come from there, and that's Louisiana. Was that good? No. Well, Louisiana has a problem that makes all the other problems on this list look manageable. It's losing the actual land. Coastal erosion is swallowing roughly a football field of Louisiana every 90 minutes. Not every day, every 90 minutes. And that's just the baseline before hurricane season shows up with its own options and where the coastline should be. The insurance market has quietly collapsed around this reality also. Private insurers have been exiting Louisiana's coastal zones for years. Too many claims, they're too much risk, not enough maths. Homeowners are being pushed onto side insurers of last resort, which costs more and it actually covers less. In some parishes, private homeowner insurances simply doesn't exist at any price point. You cannot get a mortgage on a house you cannot insure. Banks are not sentimental like that. They're just not. They've done the math too. The people who evacuated after major storms and flooded, they're not going to rebuild. They're not retiring. They're settling somewhere else permanently. And that's not hesitation. That's a decision. And you cannot negotiate with erosion. Erosion doesn't take meetings. Now let's look at number 9. We're getting close to the end. It's going to start getting interesting here. We're talking about West Virginia. And West Virginia has been shrinking since the 1950s. Not since the pandemic, not since last recession, since the decade, since the decade Eisenhower was president. Entire towns that once held thousands of people now hold hundreds. Schools that were standing room are only running at half capacity. They're simply closed, locked, dark, weeds coming out through the parking lot. The deeper crisis isn't just population, it's what population loss does to the people who stay there. Some rural countries genuinely cannot hire enough teachers, cannot fully staff a local emergency room. These aren't projections for the 2040s. This is the current operation and reality now. The opioid pandemic hit West Virginia harder than almost anywhere in the country and pulled a massive portion of working age residents out of the workforce permanently through death, long-term disability or incarceration. Communities don't absorb that kind of loss and bounce back on a normal timeline. Why would you want to go live there if this is what's happening there? The whole stays. Now let's look at number 10. Oregon, Portland. Used to be the city that people moved to on purpose. It was affordable, genuinely weird in a way that felt earned. Great food scene, mountains within an hour, and people had strong feelings about Portland. In the way that you have strong feelings about a place that actually worked. Now it's one of the fastest shrinking cities in the western United States. What happened? What happened wasn't one thing. It was everything hitting at once. A homelessness crisis that moved into the centre of the city. A sharp rise in property crime. Major retailers shutting locations and not coming back. A drug policy experiment that created street conditions rough enough that people with opinions started using them. And there's the part that separates Oregon from the rest of the list. The people leaving Portland aren't fleeing unemployment. The jobs actually exist. They're leaving because of the livability collapse. The livability collapsed fast enough that the job stopped feeling like enough for a reason to stay. The city lost the thing that made people choose it. And once that's gone, it's very hard to come back. It's very hard to argue that someone should stay. Some of them aren't staying in the country. The last part isn't a punchline either. For the first time in a decade, the people backing up and leaving aren't just crossing the state lines, they're crossing the oceans. And the places that they're landing, that's a whole other video that we're going to get into next time. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, 50 States of You, and we'll see you on the next one.